A longtime rival of Sean Diddy Combs isn't holding back his feelings on the embattled rapper and producer. Curtis Jackson, better known as 50 Cent, has spoken out and at points even trolled Diddy numerous times before and after Diddy was swimming in several lawsuits for alleged sexual misconduct.
The pressure didn't build slowly, it dropped all at once. One set of words surfaced, and suddenly the spotlight snapped back on a story that many people thought had gone quiet for good. What was once whispered turned public. What was once brushed off started getting examined, and the reaction was immediate.
Now, in a new interview recently published by The Hollywood Reporter, the Get Rich or Die Trying rapper isn't mincing words on how he really feels about his arch rival. In the interview, 50 Cent addressed his relationship with Diddy, who faces a number of troubling allegations, including rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and sex trafficking over a string of lawsuits. 50 Cent says he's been very vocal about not going to Diddy's now infamous parties, which have been alleged as the site of some of the heinous acts he's been accused of. While referring to Diddy as his old moniker Puffy, 50 Cent said, "I've been very vocal about not going to Puffy parties and doing stuff like that. I've been staying out of that stuff for years. It's an uncomfortable energy connected to it." When asked if someone told 50 Cent if the energy there was off or if he went to something that felt odd, 50 replied, "He asked to take me shopping. I thought that was the weirdest stuff in the world, because that might be something that a man says to a woman." He would go on to say, "From that, I wasn't comfortable around him." 50 Cent would go on to discuss the brutal hotel surveillance video released in May, which showed the Bad Boy founder horrifically attacking his ex-girlfriend Cassie. That incident was mentioned in Cassie's now settled lawsuit against Diddy, in which Diddy allegedly paid $50,000 for the tape. Once that video was made public, Diddy issued a public apology. However, didn't mention Cassie by name, as it's been reported Diddy is no longer able to say her name publicly as a part of their settlement.
I was f***ed up. I hit rock bottom. But I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it, I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. I had to go into therapy, and go into rehab. I had to ask God for His mercy and grace. I'm so sorry. But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry.
The video was published to Diddy's Instagram, but has since been scrubbed from his page. Diddy's rival 50 Cent had choice words about the brutal video, saying first he denied that even happened, and then the tape comes out, so that means everything that N-word says is a lie. When someone watches that, if they have a daughter and they can imagine her being under those circumstances, that stuff is crazy. Like they let him get away with it. With all the influence and power you have, the person you're with is supposed to be a part of your life, not be forced. 50 Cent has long touted his plans to make a docuseries about his longtime rival. When asked what made 50 want to produce the series, he replied in part, "I'm the only one from hip-hop culture that's produced quality projects." 50 Cent and Diddy have collaborated on a few songs together, and when 50 was an unsigned rapper more than 20 years ago, he used to ghostwrite for the Bad Boy founder. But 50 Cent made it clear the two just worked together. He replied in part, "I wouldn't call it a friendship because there would be disappointment between us if we didn't speak to each other. There's points that we work together." 50 Cent would go on to credit Jennifer Lopez, Diddy's ex-girlfriend, who 50 Cent said told Diddy he would work with him as a songwriter in the beginning of his career. 50 Cent said this occurred when he was getting back to work after being shot several times in May of 2000. He would recall, though, one time when Diddy called and 50's oldest son's mother answered the phone and 50 refused to talk to Diddy. 50 would go on to say he didn't want to answer the phone because he didn't want to ever party or hang out with him. He replied, "Puff is a business person. When people call him a producer, I see people that were taken advantage of who produced things that he took from them. He got credit. He's not a producer. He's been able to take advantage of the business and..."
Being under fire doesn't start with flames. It starts with discomfort, with people shifting in their seats, with silence getting heavier instead of lighter. The moment those revelations hit the air, the tone changed. Jokes stopped landing. Deflection stopped working. The industry felt tense in a way that doesn't fade easily. What made this moment different wasn't just that disturbing things were mentioned, it was that they were framed as things hidden for years, not accidents, not misunderstandings, patterns. And when patterns are suggested, denial becomes harder to maintain. For a long time, the story survived on ambiguity, on half-truths, on the benefit of doubt. That ambiguity acted like armor. It allowed people to say there wasn't enough proof, not enough clarity, not enough reason to take it seriously. But once silence broke, that armor cracked. The fire spread fast. Social spaces lit up with reactions ranging from shock to grim acknowledgement. Some people acted stunned, as if this came out of nowhere. Others reacted like they'd
have kept noticeably silent on the allegations he faces. That's except for one famous friend, Stephen Jordan, aka Stevie J, who's Diddy's longtime friend. After Rodney Lil Jones Jr. filed his federal lawsuit against Diddy earlier this year, in which he referenced Diddy's infamous parties as seemingly the scene of a number of the allegations he now faces, including sex trafficking, forced drugging, and compromising footage of celebrities that have been held as blackmail. Stevie J seemingly responded with a post to Instagram with the caption, "This is what a real Diddy party looks like." The video showed a number of famous faces, including Jay-Z and Beyonce, Kim Kardashian, her then-husband Kanye West, Naomi Campbell, and several others who were all together to celebrate Diddy's 50th birthday in 2019. Fast forward to 2024, 50 was asked why there have been so many silent voices when it comes to celebs speaking out about Diddy, as if they're afraid to speak up. 50 replied in part, "Some of them were involved at the parties and enjoyed themselves, so they don't know what the F is on the tape or what's not on the tape. So they're not going to say anything because they might have had too much fun." And then you've got other people who look at it and go, "Well, that's not my business and I don't want to be in it." Then you got a part of our culture that says that's snitching or dry snitching. It's uncomfortable for me to say what I said because I've been saying this stuff for 4 or 5 years. Everybody else is not going to be as comfortable as I'm saying it. 50 Cent then alleged there's one famous friend that is aware of Diddy's alleged disturbing behavior. R&B legend Mary J. Blige, who got her start at Diddy's Bad Boy Records, has been a longtime friend of the embattled rapper and producer. But she reportedly has a great relationship with 50 Cent as well. When asked if Mary J. Blige reached out to 50, he responded, no. You know what? Mary never reached out to tell me not to F up Puffy because she knows he does that stuff." As Diddy and 50 Cent have long been in the rap game, they share another commonality, and that's 50 Cent's ex-girlfriend and the mother of his youngest son, Daphne Joy Navarez. The actress and OnlyFans model was named in Rodney Jones' suit against Diddy as she was referenced to as an alleged sex worker of Diddy's that also gets paid a monthly stipend. She has denied those allegations in a post made to social media, writing, "I am deeply hurt by the lies in Rodney Jones' lawsuit. The claim that I'm a sex worker is 100% false and character assassination. I am retaining an attorney to explore all legal remedies against both Rodney and his attorney." 50 Cent seemingly poked fun at the allegation of the mother of his son being an alleged sex worker. In a post made to his social media page, 50 wrote a caption, "I didn't know you was a sex worker, you little sex worker, LOL." But this would prompt Daphne Joy to respond to her ex again on social media, but this time would accuse 50 directly of rape and being abusive during their relationship. She would write in part, "Everything is a joke to you until our safety is compromised, which is happening now. You are wreaking real havoc, frenzy, and chaos onto people's lives. How would you feel if Sire was the one in handcuffs for nothing? Let's put the real focus on your true evil actions of raping me and physically abusing me. You are no longer my oppressor, and my God will handle you from this point on. You have permanently damaged the last hope I had for you as a father to preserve our family with these last and final false claims made against me. You have broken our hearts for the last and final time." Those allegations against 50 Cent would prompt him to fire back against his ex Daphne Joy and sue her for defamation. In his suit, 50 Cent said those allegations were unequivocally false and would claim she made the shocking allegations in retaliation after he moved to take sole custody of their son. Since that suit, Daphne has deleted her Instagram post accusing 50 of rape and physical abuse. 50 Cent was asked by The Hollywood Reporter the latest in the defamation suit. The rapper and television producer said he tiptoes around the Daphne stuff and explained why. He said, "I got a family court case. The allegations that came out, she posted things to her page saying some crazy stuff. But this comes 8 hours after I filed for custody for my son. And she put that up in response to that, and I'm like,
been waiting for this exact moment. Like something they'd suspected was finally being said out loud. Being under fire also changes how people talk. Suddenly words get cautious, statements get vague, people choose sides without admitting they're choosing sides, and anyone who tries to stay neutral gets pulled in anyway. The disturbing part wasn't graphic detail, it was implication. The idea that certain behaviors weren't random, but consistent. That things didn't just happen once and disappear, but lingered, repeated, and were quietly tolerated. That's what shook people, not spectacle, but the suggestion of normalcy. The idea that something unsettling could exist in plain sight for years without being addressed openly. When revelations like that surface, the first instinct is to question motive. Why now? Why speak at this moment? Why break silence after so long? Those questions are convenient because they shift focus away from what's being said and toward who's saying it. But motives don't erase impact. Words don't evaporate just because people are.
Ugh. In this climate, you know how quickly they pass judgment. Things have worked out since she said those things. He went on to add, I'd like to respond and say some wild stuff, but I've got to sustain that for my son. 50 was asked if he was worried about the allegations, especially given he's making a docuseries about an alleged abuser. And 50 replied, it is damaging. It is damaging just to have anything said about you at this point, because you have people out there who don't believe your intentions. And if things are going in a positive direction for you and something pops, they gasp. He went on to say, for entertainment purposes, they exploit that as much as possible, but there's no merit to it. But one thing 50 wasn't asked was if he believed Diddy would be formally charged and or potentially indicted for the many allegations he still faces. But attorney Ben Chu, who represented Johnny Depp during his trial against Amber Heard, says he does see an indictment coming down in Diddy's future.
I agree with that. I mean, obviously, I don't have any inside information. I don't think many people do, but I do think the signs are ominous. These are very grave matters. As you know, there have been 2 raids on his properties, and that's obviously very ominous signs for him. Although, interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic, evidence, but still, these are very serious matters. So, I think he faces some serious reckoning.
Diddy faces a staggering number of civil lawsuits for sexual misconduct, 10 that have been filed since last November. Former adult film star Adria English filed her suit on July 3rd of this year, claiming she was first employed by Combs in 2004 and was groomed into sex trafficking over time. In May of this year, April Lampros filed her lawsuit against Combs, accusing him of battery and sexual assault. 2 days prior to Lampros' suit being filed, Crystal McKinney also filed a suit against Diddy. McKinney alleges she met Combs at a studio where he gave her a lace joint, alcohol, then forced her to the bathroom and forced her to perform oral sex on him. Rodney Jones Jr. filed his lawsuit in federal court in February of this year that accuses Combs and the people who work with him of being part of an illegal racketeering enterprise. He also accused Diddy of sex trafficking, sexual assault, and harassment. Then there's a suit filed by a woman under the moniker Jane Doe, which was filed in December of 2023. Doe alleges she was gang raped and sex trafficked by Combs and former Bad Boy Records president Harve Pierre when she was just 17 years old and in the 11th grade. Liza Gardner filed her lawsuit against Combs and R&B singer Aaron Hall in November of 2023, alleging the two forced her to have sex with them against her will when she was 16 years old. On the same day Gardner's suit was filed, another suit was filed, this one by Joy Dickerson Neal. She alleges Combs intentionally drugged her, then sexually assaulted her and recorded the assault. And then there's the only lawsuit that has been settled, a mere day after it was filed in federal court, and that's the federal lawsuit filed by Diddy's ex-girlfriend, singer and actress Cassandra Ventura, aka Cassie. In Cassie's now settled lawsuit against her ex, she accused Diddy of sexual assault, battery, sex trafficking, and requiring her to engage in forced sexual acts. Since the ongoing suits, Diddy has appeared to be living his life. He's been pictured biking around South Beach, getting onto his lavish private jet, and even whitewater rafting. But for his accusers, it hasn't been sitting well. After the photos were made public of Diddy seemingly enjoying his summer vacation in Wyoming, Cassie's lawyer Douglas Wigder released a statement to TMZ saying, quote, "I don't think whitewater rafting will prepare him for the choppy waters that lie ahead." Adria English, Diddy's most recent accuser's attorney, also weighed in, saying, after seeing defendant Combs whitewater rafting and jetting around on his personal plane, seemingly
about timing. Once something disturbing is introduced into public conversation, it becomes part of the narrative whether anyone likes it or not. The fire intensified because there was no immediate denial that shut everything down, no clean rebuttal that made it all feel settled. Instead, there was tension, waiting, a sense that everyone was watching to see what would happen next. And waiting makes people uneasy. The industry, especially, doesn't like unpredictability, it thrives on control. unmanaged stories, uncalculated silence. Disturbing revelations threaten that control because they invite questions that don't have simple answers. Who knew? Who ignored it? Who benefited from not knowing too much? Being under fire means those questions don't stay theoretical. They start attaching themselves to real people, real moments, real decisions, and that's when things get uncomfortable. Some rushed to defend. They dismissed everything as exaggeration, bitterness, or personal conflict. That reaction was fast and loud.
With a baseball bat, forcing him to sign over his stake. So Burroughs apparently sued in 2003. The lawsuit was thrown out because too much time had passed since the alleged incident. And more recently, Burroughs sued Janice Combs for fraud, Combs himself for sexual harassment. This is according to a report from Cinemaholic. And those appear to be ongoing, by the way. Now, Burroughs claims that he was blacklisted from the entertainment industry, led to periods of homelessness. He's since re-entered the music industry, starting Pop Life Entertainment in 2018. This is also per Cinemaholic. So, Elizabeth, there's a lot here. But what did you make of the Burroughs part where he was proving, you know, this kind of relationship that he had and that he was coerced into giving up his stake in what would become a multi-million-dollar company? I mean, I guess the allegation is basically that Diddy ruined his life.
Yeah, that was there are a lot of difficult moments in the documentary. I watched all 4 episodes as mentioned, and that was a tough one. And again, information that we hadn't really seen before in prior documentaries. So, you know, this is someone who had co-founded Bad Boy Entertainment with him. A lot of the things he was saying seemed to kind of run along the theme that I think prosecutors were trying to push in the actual case, was that in the prosecutor's view, this is somebody who will do anything to basically get what he wants. He doesn't really care what effects or damage that causes to other people. And it's in different ways, right? Whether it's in the context of alleged abuse, business disputes, alleged sexual assaults, things that have been alleged in the civil lawsuits against him. And I think with Burroughs, it was really, kind of seemed to strike that theme as well, because he's saying, he had forced me out of the stake of my company. You know, he had to deal with things like homelessness, while in the 2000s and 2010s, Diddy was really prospering, music, business, fashion. And one of the things that he had said, what he alleged in the documentary, and again, this is an allegation from him, was that the name Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs's name was not really involved in that on the corporate side. And one of the things he's saying is the reason for that was to avoid having to pay any liability from, the devastating basketball game that had happened in the early 90s, where he was the subject of wrongful death lawsuits because of the multiple deaths that had occurred as a result of that basketball game that Diddy was behind organizing. So that was really, surprising to hear.
Yeah, that was a big allegation, because the families of the victims killed in that stampede, it was horrible. We're talking about December 28th, 1991. Combs, fellow rapper Heavy D, they hosted this charity basketball game. The game took place at the gymnasium of the City College of New York. And according to the New York Daily News, before the basketball game started, people who weren't let inside, they broke a window, swarmed toward the entrance of the gym, all went down a staircase. The doors at the bottom of those stairs opened towards the stairs, not towards the gym. So once a crowd got down there, they couldn't get the doors open and people started being crushed. 9 people died. Dozens of others were injured. And there were no criminal charges that were ever filed against anyone for the stampede, but multiple families and injured victims, they filed lawsuits. And that's just one part, right? So I actually wanted to get into this too. The docuseries devoted a lot of time to the killings of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls and Combs' alleged connections to this, to both men, obviously knew both of them. So there have been accusations made in the past that Combs' involvement in the East Coast, West Coast rap feud of the 90s, there was more than just talk, that it could have involved things like hit orders. Now, to be clear, these are allegations. There's no evidence to suggest this. This series, though, it emphasizes that he has never been investigated or charged regarding their assassinations. Nevertheless, several interviewees during this documentary expressed that Combs' actions seem suspicious in hindsight. The documentary plays part of an interview that Dwayne Keefe D. Davis did with investigators looking into Tupac's murder, which had become a cold case. And on the tapes, Keefe D. says that Combs agreed to pay him if he killed Tupac and also rival record.
Almost rehearsed. Because defending the status quo is often easier than confronting the possibility that something darker existed underneath it. Others didn't defend or attack, they just listened. And listening, in moments like this, can feel like an accusation in itself. Silence shifts meaning when the stakes rise. What's disturbing isn't just what's being alleged, It's the idea that silence was rewarded for so long, that looking away was easier than speaking up, that keeping things hidden served more people than exposing them would have. That realization burns hotter than any single accusation. The fire also revealed how fragile reputations really are, built carefully over years, protected by influence and success, but vulnerable the moment the narrative changes. When disturbing things are mentioned, even without details, perception shifts instantly. And perception is powerful. Being under fire doesn't mean guilt is established. It means trust is shaken. It means the benefit of doubt shrinks. It means every past action gets re-examined under a harsher light.
Label head Suge Knight. Now, Davis allegedly admitted that his nephew Orlando Anderson was the one who shot the men, killing Tupac, injuring Knight. But Davis says Combs never came through with any payment. And by the way, Davis is currently awaiting trial for Tupac's murder in Las Vegas. Combs has always denied any involvement in the assassination. That was a big moment, I would say. Elizabeth, that was a big part of this. I didn't know that was going to be a part of this documentary.
I was really surprised as well. So I believe it's the second episode that dedicates a lot of time to it. And like you said, there have been insinuations in the past. They played video clips of, Sean Combs being asked in prior interviews in the 90s and 2000s, do you know, who killed these men? Did you have any involvement? He's always denied it. To be clear, these are just allegations. But yeah, that was really, really shocking. And one of the sort of a little bit more of the backstory behind his alleged involvement with Tupac was that a lot of the interviewees in the documentary were saying that Biggie, who was signed with Bad Boy and who was really close with Diddy at the time, was starting to form a friendship with Tupac, and they were getting really close. And a lot of the interviewees were saying, in their view, Diddy didn't really appreciate that. So I think a lot of the themes that you see again is coming up as him sort of wanting and needing to be the number one person in people's lives, whether it was personal, business. And it's really interesting because you see a lot of the themes that, again, the prosecution was trying to push forward that we saw in his personal life with Cassandra Ventura, always needing to be number one, not necessarily regarding the damages he's doing to other people in the prosecution's eyes, right? Playing out in the business sense. So the backstory is that he didn't appreciate the friendship that was forming between Biggie and Tupac, and therefore, that's where his alleged involvement came in. And then when, in terms of the non-payment, I think that was also a really shocking moment as well, because that's something we saw happening over and over in the documentary. Multiple people who are saying, I was cheated out of my share in the company. I wasn't paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. And allegedly, that's sort of how he treated the artists that were on his label. So again, it's the theme of always wanting to be number one and, not necessarily giving people their due, business sense or personal sense.
Okay, so with that, I will tell you, I think one of the most shocking allegations comes to Biggie Smalls, okay? You talk about finances, you talk about that, okay. One of the biggest names at Bad Boy, seemingly very close friends with Sean Combs. Well, according to Kirk Burrows, Combs, and again, this is his allegation, according to Kirk Burrows, Combs insisted that Biggie travel to Los Angeles as part of an album tour, and this is despite, the serious dangers that were present from the rivalries, the East Coast, West Coast. And once there, Combs allegedly decided to cancel a trip that Biggie was supposed to take to the UK, instead saying he needed to stay in LA. Combs apparently threw a large party, and after which, someone opened fire on the car that Biggie was riding in, killing him. Now, Burrows alleges that Combs used all of this publicity around Biggie's murder and his massive funeral to just gain his own fame for his own benefit, shooting to the top of the charts with the song Missing You, which featured, by the way, Biggie's widow. But this was one salacious claim that I really wasn't expecting. According to Burrows, Combs, allegedly, charged the costs of that massive funeral to Biggie's estate and had Biggie's recently renegotiated contract changed to make it more favorable for Bad Boy Records and less favorable for Biggie's loved ones after his death. Elizabeth, again, that one I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, it was really unexpected. And again, I think it speaks to the strength of the documentary, just at least creatively and what they were able to get in terms of the interviewees, claims that we hadn't heard before. So the claims were that, he had wanted, in the documentary, the interviews talk about, Diddy had said, we need to put on the biggest funeral New York has ever seen for Biggie. And when apparently, allegedly, when he saw how much it would cost, that's when he had said, we'll be charging this to the estate, allegedly. One of the other things was,
People started revisiting old moments, old interviews, old footage, reading them differently. Things that once seemed harmless suddenly felt strange. Innocent gestures took on heavier meaning. That's what happens when context changes. The industry's reaction said more than words ever could. Meetings happened quietly. Conversations got careful. People distanced themselves without announcing it. No public statements, just subtle movement. That kind of reaction doesn't come from nothing. The fire also spread because people recognized a familiar pattern. Powerful figures rarely fall because of one explosive revelation. They fall because of accumulated whispers finally reaching a volume that can't be ignored. Disturbing things hidden for years don't shock people because they're unbelievable. They shock people because they feel plausible. And plausibility is dangerous. Some tried to frame the whole situation as entertainment, turning it into memes and jokes. That didn't last long.
He had wanted to put out that song about Biggie after he had passed away, and that was really a big moment. He had performed it at the MTV Movie Awards. And then one of the other claims was, Biggie was set to debut on the cover of Rolling Stone, or at least be on the cover of Rolling Stone. And allegedly, one of the interviewees says after he had passed, Sean Combs had called him and said, "I'm coming out with my first solo album. I need that cover." So Sean Combs had allegedly taken that cover from Biggie even after he had passed away. And again, it kind of rides to this theme of, in the public, his friend had passed away. He was devastated. But sort of what you see behind the scenes, at least what the documentary is alleging, is all the different ways he's using that to help benefit him financially and in terms of his career, which is something that we hadn't seen before. And, even myself, like I'm sure you empathize, Jesse, as a millennial. We grew up seeing Diddy, knowing the backstory of him and Biggie, and sort of knowing that song and thinking, oh, they were close friends. He paid tribute to his friend. That's so moving. And then to hear all of these allegations, it really paints, another picture.
I remember when that happened. It was such a sad time. And to think about them dedicating a song to his close friend, I mean, it hit an emotional core. You looked at Diddy in a totally different light. Now, these, again, are a different narrative, a different allegation. We're trying to piece it together. I do want to get into the jurors, okay? So the jurors at the trial. Before we do, let me just highlight a couple more things, and then we'll get into the jurors in the cease and desist letter. So one gripping moment in the series, I got to call it out, came when Aubrey O'Day, again, this former Danity Kane member who spoke out against Combs after Cassie had filed her lawsuit, reads this affidavit from another unidentified person that detailed an alleged sexual assault against her. And in that affidavit, the witness said they walked in on Combs and another man performing sex acts on O'Day, who the witness said appeared to be heavily inebriated, was just lying there. And O'Day became emotional when she was reading this, saying she'd never actually seen this document, had only heard it read to her over the phone. And she said she had no memory of that happening to her, which is just, it's a really powerful moment. Someone else who worked closely with Combs was producer Rodney Little Rod Jones, who was also interviewed for the series. We've talked about him a lot here on Sidebar because he detailed several of the incidents that he had previously included in a lawsuit against Combs, including that he believes Combs drugged him on multiple occasions. He also claims that he worked with Combs for a year on the last album he put out, actually living with Combs during that time. But his allegation is he claims he never got paid for his work. And the documentary included alleged voice messages from Combs where he assured Little Rod that he would get paid eventually and that he was making a big deal out of nothing. But now I got to talk about the jurors. Okay, so we heard from two of the jurors who served on the jury during Combs' federal criminal trial in New York. So Juror 75 and Juror 160. They spoke about the split verdict, with Juror 75 saying, "We saw both sides of it and we came with our conclusion." Juror 160 said that she never felt like Combs was being coercive toward the jury, agreeing that sometimes he would look over at them or nod his head, but saying it didn't seem like he was trying to sway the jury one way or another. There were others in the documentary who claimed that Combs had an entire PR team working outside the courthouse, making sure to speak with bloggers and content creators, pushing their narrative into the public consciousness. The jury, by the way, wasn't sequestered during the trial. Some in the docuseries wondered if, despite their best efforts, they could have been influenced improperly by the discourse going on around them. But Elizabeth, these two jurors speaking out there, what stood out to you about their comments? And does anything that they say, in your opinion, affect the verdict?
Yeah, so this was so fascinating. You very rarely hear from jurors talking publicly, especially about such a high-profile trial like this, and especially on camera. So I think that was a real coup for them to be able to get these two jurors to come on camera. I think it spoke to two things we saw in the trial.
There's a point where humor stops working, where the tone shifts from spectacle to seriousness. This crossed that line quickly. Being under fire forces a reckoning, not just for one individual, but for everyone connected to the environment that allowed silence to exist. It challenges the idea that success excuses behavior, or that influence insulates people from accountability. The disturbing part isn't just what might have happened, it's how long it may have been ignored. That's why the reaction was so intense. People weren't just reacting to new information, they were reacting to the possibility that they'd been complicit in looking away. And that's an uncomfortable thing to sit with. The fire also exposed how quickly loyalty can fracture. Some people disappeared from the conversation entirely, others doubled down on defense. Very few addressed the substance head-on. That avoidance speaks volumes. Being under fire doesn't resolve anything on its own. It creates pressure. Pressure forces choices: silence or response, retreat or confrontation, denial or reflection. And every choice sends a signal. What's clear is that the industry didn't treat this like noise. It treated it like a threat to image, stability, and long-standing agreements of silence. Once disturbing things enter the public record, even vaguely, they change the conversation permanently. You can't unhear them. You can't unthink them. You can't pretend the questions don't exist anymore. Being under fire means living with that shift. It means knowing the story no longer belongs to you alone. It belongs to the public, to interpretation, to scrutiny. This moment isn't about final judgment. It's about exposure, about pressure, about the uncomfortable space between allegation and accountability. And that space is where reputations either survive or collapse. The fire burns hottest not because of rage, but because of recognition that something wasn't right, that silence played a role, that comfort was prioritized over truth. Whether anything concrete comes next or not, the damage is already real. Trust doesn't reset easily, perception doesn't rewind. The industry is watching carefully now, not casually, carefully. Because once disturbing things hidden for years start coming to light, everyone wonders what else is still in the dark. And that question doesn't go away quietly. The fire is lit. And no one knows yet how far it's going to spread.